As a former safety and health specialist, as well as an industrial hygiene officer, and as well as someone with a master's degree in public health aspect, and as somebody who is an attorney and who used to practice law for over 15 years, my philosophy is that it's not really life after COVID. COVID's not going anywhere. There's a couple of perspectives that I want you to keep in your mind when going forward in terms of what is the public health perspective and the legal perspective of our new COVID world. First, it's important to remember, and we've been told this countless times, receiving of the vaccine is designed to do a variety of things. One, it's designed to, increase our immunity against COVID-19. Two, it is designed to, of course, reduce or eliminate the potential severe symptoms that you may be subjected to it. And three, it may reduce the likelihood of you spreading the disease to others. But from a public health standpoint, and this is one of the things that I tell people when people ask me about it from a public health standpoint, I'm like, listen, part of your public health aspect is a global approach. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to reduce the amount of exposures to a particular illness. So what does that mean for us going forward? That when trying to reduce the number of illnesses, that your exposures to illnesses, you have to take in the entire population, not just a segment of the population. And so as a result, what happens is not only do you take in consideration the people who get vaccinated, who are able to now maneuver in a particular way, you also have to take in consideration the other population, the population of people who have made the decision that they're not going to get the vaccination and who have made the decision that their various exposures to this illness is not as significant to them as other persons. Now, again, I'm not here to criticize anyone's choice. You have to be mindful, and this is from a public health standpoint, that because of the fact that you have a segment of the population that may deviate from doing those things that may reduce the amount of exposure of the illness to others, you have to factor them into what impact that's going to have on the community as a whole. And why is that important? The system as a whole, from a public health standpoint, has to adapt to the fact that any uptick in numbers, in order to reduce the exposure, you're going to have to implement controls like you were before in order to get those numbers down. But it's important to understand that when we're looking at public health is, like I said, public health is a global perspective. So that means in order to adjust for whatever happens in terms of a specific demographic, we have to take in and wear that weight collectively, especially in light of the fact is that we have more variants that are starting coming out, and we are now starting to find out what impact the vaccines have on these variants. As long as the vaccine continues to be an effective means of dealing with these variants, then from a public health standpoint, you're not going to have as much of a concern. They're going to keep an eye out, but just not as much of a concern because you now see that the vaccines are effective at doing what they're doing. Don't be surprised if a lot of the social safeguards that we put in place start popping back up, maybe not to the severity that they were back in March of 2020, but a variation of it. And even if the government doesn't do it, don't be surprised if employers do it, because they have to be cognizant of the fact that they have to protect their employees. Because if the numbers are going up and their employees are being exposed to people who they have no way of verifying whether or not those individuals are following the protocols, they've got to make sure they protect their people in the long run. The other side of this is the legal side. One of the things that you will find, and you probably don't know, that attorneys do, is anytime there's a new situation that presents itself, there's usually an opportunity for new legal actions to pop up. Attorneys are very good about paying close attention to how a particular new set of circumstance that has a large global impact may have a potential large global legal impact. And some of you are sitting there going saying, oh, attorney just looking for a way to sue somebody. I say, well, not necessarily. They're not looking for ways to sue somebody, but part of their responsibility and part of what their job is to do is to represent the interest of people who have been harmed. And you've got to remember, we're talking about a virus that none of us saw coming, that impacted us really fast, and that impacted so many people globally, not locally, not nationally, globally. So as a result of this impact, there is going to be situations that present itself as a result of this that may be legal situations that attorneys are going to have to face. It could be anything from a financial standpoint. Think about the number of people who have had to file bankruptcy with regards to the fact that they couldn't go back into work because of the nature of the job that they had, the lack of income, the slowness of stimulus packages coming before them. They may find themselves having to avail the bankruptcy system, and bankruptcy attorney can talk about if the COVID situation will have any role or any impact in terms of their bankruptcy proceedings. Probate, meaning when somebody passes away, those things pop into case. So cause of death may be an issue with regards to that, and that also may play a part with regards to insurance. There may be situations from an employment situation where somebody is saying that they worked for an employer who consciously put them in harm's way, did not provide them enough protective equipment, did not put enough safeguards in place to ensure they didn't get sick, and then they end up getting sick, and they can chart it back to, or trace it back to, getting exposed to something at their workplace. And trust me when I tell you, attorneys are there to investigate all of those things, because depending on the set of facts and circumstances and the laws of those areas, those may be viable concerns. Why is this important? Because what happens is, whenever you find yourself in a situation with a new set of circumstances that may give rise to a new set of legal actions, attorneys are in a unique situation of trying to not only investigate but present cases to see whether or not this is something that can be covered. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're not totally sure if the nature of your situation there's a tie with COVID may have an impact from a legal standpoint, whether it be employment, whether it be financial, whether it be insurance, whatever the case may be, and you're not sure, reach out to an attorney. Now, I'll tell you, this is the other thing that's going to be funky, because a lot of people are going to be like, how do you look for a COVID attorney? And I'm thinking, don't look at it as a COVID. Look at it as this is my situation. Look for that situation type of attorney, and then ask what impact COVID has on it. So for instance, if you have a bankruptcy case and you know that COVID played a role in that bankruptcy, you go to a bankruptcy attorney and you ask the bankruptcy attorney, this was impacted by my COVID and this is how. Is that important? All of these things are important because we are still, I know it's been a year and a half, we are still fairly young in this particular thing, because we don't know how long it's going to last, or how devastating it's going to be impacting, and it's still devastating to this day. But from a legal standpoint and from a public health standpoint, these things are things that you need to be mindful of going forward, so that you can move more fluidly in this new COVID world.